In this video, we're going to make a simple C++ project in Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio open here, and I'm using Visual Studio Express, which you can download for free from Microsoft's website. The first thing I'm going to do is select New Project. I could also get to that by going to File, New, and then Project. Okay, so I want to make sure that on the left-hand side here, it's Visual C++ that is selected. Because I have the Express version, which is just C++, I only see C++. But if you're in Visual Studio, you're going to see other languages there like Visual Basic. You want to make sure that Visual C++ is selected. If you don't see Visual C++, look for the selection of other languages and expand that, and under there you'll see Visual C++. So I'm going to pick Visual C++ and Win32 console application. So I need to make sure that I save the file somewhere where it won't be deleted when I shut down the computer. So if you're in the Humber Labs, don't save to the C drive, make sure you save to your H drive. I'm saving to my D drive. And then I need to give the program a name. I'm just going to call it Simple Program. Okay. Okay. This next screen, click Finish because Finish is what's in bold, but you don't want to click Finish. You want to click Next. So I'm going to click Next, and I want to make sure that Empty Project is selected. Console application should already be selected. Now I'm going to click Finish. Okay, so then I'm going to right-click on Source Files. So I'll let you see that again. I'm going to right-click here on Source Files. I'm going to say Add New Item. I'm going to make sure the new item is a .cpp file. And I have to give it a name. I'm just going to call it main1. Okay, and now my CPP file shows up here. If you don't see it here, it could be that that this arrow is not expanded, right? So you don't see it under source files. Just expand this arrow, and then you'll see your file. When you click on it, it'll open over here. Right now there's nothing in our file, so this is where we're going to add our code. And the first thing we're going to start with is a comment. Comments are done in two ways. If it's a single line comment, I can use a /, and I'll just say this is a comment. If the comment is going to break up over more than one line, I can use a / and a star to start the comment. So this is also a comment. And notice that everything is staying green, and so far everything is considered a comment until I close this with another star and a /. Anything after this now is not a comment anymore. Okay? So what I should do is put in some meaningful comments. So I'm going to put in the name of my program and what it does. So this is main.cpp, and it's going to be a simple program to request the user's name and student number. And I'm going to put my name. I could add the date in there as well. And I could add a revision number As a note to myself, it's my first version. Okay, so the next part of our program is include files and libraries, things that our program needs to run but aren't actually part of our main program. So the first thing that I'm going to add is the IOStream library. And I'm going to add the string library. The next line I'm putting is include namespace standard. And there are different namespaces, but I want to include the standard namespace that contains the elements in the standard library. Now we want to write the main function for our program. So our main function is not going to return any value, so it's going to start with void. It's going to have the function name main, and it's not going to take any value. So I'm going to have void in the brackets. My function needs to start with a curly brace and ends with a curly brace. Okay? And I always put both the beginning and end braces in at the same time, so I don't lose count of how many open and closed braces that I have. Because every structure that we're going to work with, like loops and if statements and that sort of thing, are going to have these braces. So if we don't keep it clear from the start, it can get very confusing. With this void here in the brackets, because it's void, I could actually leave it out and just leave the brackets empty. But I always put it in. Okay, so I want to add code to my main function, so I want to add that code in between the brace brackets. The first thing I want to do is declare my variables. So I'm putting a comment here that I'm going to declare my variables. And one of the variables I want to use is going to be a string variable. In order for it to be a string variable, I had to include the string library, and I had to include the standard namespace, or say that I'm using the standard namespace. So I'm going to give, so the type of my variable comes first. So I say first that it's going to be a string variable, then I say what the name of the variable is going to be. So I'm going to have a variable called student name, and I'm going to have a variable called student ID, and both of them are going to be strings. So because they're both strings, I can put them on the same line, simply separated by a comma. I also could have written this as that on another line. And you notice that I had to put a semicolon at the end of these lines and at the end of this line. So I don't have to put it with these preprocessor directives include, but I do have to put it here. I don't put it on a structure. So notice that my void main void does not have any semicolons associated with it. But these statements, these declaration statements, and other commands that we're going to give the computer will need semicolons at the end to indicate that that's the end of the command and that's one command to run. Okay, so you're going to see those a lot. If your program's not running for some reason, that's the first thing I'd check. And you notice that if I'm missing a semicolon, it actually underlines the line below. So if it says expected a semicolon, instead of looking on that line, go to the line above and aha, I need a semicolon. Okay, so I have two variables. I'm going to put them back on one line. and I don't need that string anymore. I've got student name and student ID. And what I want to do is ask the user to enter their student name. So first, I'm going to need to type out a statement that says, please enter your student name, because they're going to need some indication of what they have to enter. So cout, arrows pointing towards the cout, and then in quotes I'm going to say, please enter your name, semicolon. Okay, so whatever I have within the double quotes is what's going to be printed out to the screen. I think I'm going to put a space there. Now if we run this, see what happens. Okay, so when I run this, the output window appeared, but the output window closed again. So what I'm going to do is modify my code to put a system command at the end, and this system command is going to say pause. Okay, and that's the same, it's the same command that I could type if I opened up a command line window. I could type the command pause, and I could type the command cls, which will clear the window. So it may be useful to us to add a CLS at the start of our program. In this program it won't make much difference because the screen was already clear, but in future programs it will come in handy. So these are commands that could be run at the system's command window. We're doing that from within our program by saying system, round brackets, and then in quotes putting what the command is that we want the system to execute. So now when I run this, the screen will stay open. Okay, and you notice the screen remained open. It said, please enter your name. It also added the press any key to continue, which came from using the pause command. So when we press enter, the window will close. Once the student enters their name, we want to wait for them to actually input their name. So I'm using cin to wait for the input, and when I get that input, I want to save it into the string variable student name, so into this variable. So that's what I have to type here, student name. And I have to be very careful typing because C is case sensitive, which means if I put a lowercase n instead of an uppercase N, it's not going to work. Okay, so now the program will wait for the user to enter their name. Please enter your name. So I'm going to type Brandy, and I hit enter. It has saved the name, and it just says press any key to continue. Now that name is stored in student name. We could actually print that name back out to the screen. So I'm going to say cout your name is, and then I'm going to put another set of arrows, and I'm going to put the variable that I want it to print out. So notice that when I want it to type actual specific words that I've specified, it's in double quotes and the editor turns it red. If I want it to print out the value in a variable, I put the name of that variable not in quotes. Okay, that's very important. So let's run that. Please enter your name. Your name is, and it put this press any key to continue right after my name, which doesn't look very good. So I can fix that by adding something else here to this line, and what I'm adding is the new line character. So if in quotes I put \n and make sure that's a backslash and not a forward slash, it will give me a new line. So let's see that. Please enter your name. There we go. Your name is Brandy. Press any key to continue. So when we're using cout, that output is going to the standard output, which is the monitor. When we're using cin, that input is coming from the standard input, which is the keyboard. Now we should add a couple more lines to get the student ID. So I'm going to just copy these lines and insert them in here. It doesn't matter if I leave spaces between my lines of code, those will just be ignored. So I put spaces in whenever I think it'll make things more readable. And I should put a comment here that says what we're doing, which is ask the user to enter their name and student ID. And then down here what we're doing is displaying the name and ID that the student entered. Okay, so I'm going to have to change this to say please enter your student ID, and when I get that student ID I want to save it in the variable student ID, and then I want to display that as well. So I'm going to cout your student ID is, there should be space there, and then the variable student ID. Okay, let's see if that works. So Brandy, student ID, and it prints it out for us. Excellent. It did seem a little bit hard to read with everything sort of one after the other, so maybe what I'll do is I'll throw in some new lines. Instead of using the \n, I could also use the command endline, and that would work as well. End L, I guess. So let me throw a few of those in. Okay, let's see how that looks. Build errors. Oh, I forgot my arrows. Okay, so when it asks, there were build errors, would you like to continue and run the last successful build? I want to say no, because if I say yes, it's going to run the last program I had that worked. But I don't want to do that. I want to actually stop and see what these errors are. So I'm going to click no, and it's giving me my errors down in the output window. It says error, syntax, missing semicolon before identifier. So that's a little bit confusing because it's not actually missing a semicolon. I can also see these errors in the error window. So if I bring up the error list, I've got these two errors. If I double click on this error, it's going to take me to the line with the error. Now it says it's missing a semicolon, but what it's really missing is the two arrows. So with it missing those two arrows, it thought, hey, maybe that should have been the end of my command or whatever I was doing, and that a semicolon was missing, but it's actually the arrows. So some of these errors can be very cryptic. You want to keep a list of these errors and what they really mean or what they meant in specific situations that you can refer to later until you get more used to these error messages. So now I'll run this. I'm going to enter my name. Now I'm going to enter my student ID, and notice things are spaced out a little better and it's a little bit easier to read. Press any key to continue. Okay, so that was a simple program. You'll notice I did a couple of things when I wrote this program. I didn't try to write the program all at once. I wrote, a couple of lines that would do something, and then I tested it. And then I added a couple of more lines, and then I tested it. So definitely you want to have that sort of methodology so that you can track down your errors a lot easier and just sort of constantly be building on working code instead of having one big thing that you're not even sure works yet. The other thing, as a reminder, when I make this open bracket, I make this close bracket at the same time, then I go back in and I add stuff in between those brackets. So the main parts of my program, I've got comments up at the top here. Then I have my preprocessor directives to include any libraries that I'm going to need. Then I have my main function. Within my main function, I declare my variables, and then I do whatever it is I want to do. In this case, I broke it up into two separate sort of sections, asking for the inputs and then displaying what I had for the output. I needed a system pause at the end so that the window wouldn't close on me. And I put a system clear at the beginning just to clear that window. In this case it made no difference because the window was already clear, but another program where you may have things running over and over again, you may want to clear that window first. Okay, so there's a first simple basic program.